Thanks everyone for joining me with yet again another traveling interview. Today I'm talking to Brenda, who's it looks like in her RV right now. So I'm going to hear about RVing and living a simpler life and financial freedom and lots of things. So welcome, Brenda.
Hey, April, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I am in my RV, currently parked in California, Lone Pine, little town, in the shadow of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Yeah, that's a favorite area for photographers too, because you're kind of right there off the 395, I believe.
Yeah, and I just spent the afternoon goofing off in the Alabama Hills, is what they're called. It's where they filmed all the old cowboy movies. They filmed was it Tremors, that, some sci-fi movies. So it's a pretty interesting landscape.
Yeah, so what's the weather like today? Is it pretty nice? Because I know
It's
we're into May,
gorgeous.
so.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. We've got 70s. It gets a little chilly at night, but there's snow up on the peaks, and they just opened up the road, I believe, today to Mount Whitney. So hoping to explore that. They had a lot of boulders come down. They had to shove the boulders off the road.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you first get into RVing? Can you take us back to where you did you grow up in a family that went RVing or
No, no, not at all. I had never slept in one, never been in one, never driven one till I bought one. And so I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. So I've always, I can drive tractors, I've driven motorcycles. So I'm like, I can drive an RV, right? No problem. But for me, I mean, it all goes back to I had a full-time career. That career ended. I decided, what's really important is to teach women how to manage their money, how to become financially free. And I sat down at my dining room table and learned how to be a financial coach and built a course and was miserable.
oh,
And because it's like, what was I missing? I mean, sitting, for those, if you were in COVID sitting at your dining room table, you know how routine that could be. I missed the travel, I missed meeting people, I missed the adventure. I put on a lot of weight, I drank too much, I was really unhappy, and I thought, you know what, I've got to make a big shift. I'm sitting on this house financially, yeah, probably makes sense to keep it. The mortgage is paid off, but I'm on my own now. My kids out of the house. All I see is yard work. I see lawn work. I mean, housework. It's, that it needs new AC, needs new windows. This is not bringing me any pleasure at all. How can I trade in that asset for a life that brings me travel, brings me adventure? And so I stepped into an RV and I knew right away that this is how I can live. This is how I can do it. I can explore. I have the most incredible flexible schedule ever. This morning I'm on Zoom. I'll take care of some work, get in the Jeep. I'm, goofing off in the Alabama hills. I come back, we're on a podcast. I mean, how beautiful is that?
yeah. Yeah. So have you covered most of the United States in the last, say, couple years that you've been doing
It
this or
Yeah, I'm about to hit my 3-year anniversary. And so I started in May 2020, which was, we were just learning how awful COVID was. And so it was a very different experience starting out because even in campgrounds, we had to isolate ourselves. So it was a little bit of a lonely experience starting out. And so I lived in Virginia. So I started out in Virginia and did the whole East Coast. I spent a month in Vermont and came on down. I wintered at South Padre Island in Texas, and then the next year I went up the West Coast, back to the East, and now I'm in the West again. And so I've covered most of the states. There's some spots in the central part, and it's been it's been, I'm gonna just say, a very magical experience.
yeah, wonderful. So I saw a picture of your RV. It's pretty good sized to haul around.
a Jeep behind. Um, and so I'm a solo woman RVer. I travel with three cats, who learn to love it. They all leash walk. They walk on the leash, so that's pretty cool. But a lot of people, when they start out, they think, I've got to start with something small.
Yeah.
And what really you should be looking at is, especially if you're living in it, it's just like a house. What's the floor plan? If a lot of people will buy something smaller, what they're missing is like a sitting area. So now they've got a dinette, a kitchen, and a bedroom and a bathroom, but they're missing a sitting area. For me, I converted the dinette into a home office. It's like, if I go 4 feet longer, which isn't all that long, I get the sofa too. So it's really the floor plan. And since this is my home, and now you can see that it's white, it's blue. I've
Yeah.
got stuff on here. If you go into a motorhome, you're not going to find anything like this. Everything is brown and tan. So white, I painted the walls. This is beautiful blue because, you got to lighten it up. It's only 32 feet long.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is amazing. So, do you have tips for people that are thinking about, like you said, having a house when you're by yourself and the yard work, and as you get older, your kids are gone, this just feels like a big old burden. But I think there's still that mentality of like, can they really, can you do this? And some steps to like unleash yourself.
Well, the first thing is that the RV community, and especially if you're a solo woman, there are a lot of us out there, more and more and more. In fact, if you were to, you could find probably 10 solo women for every single solo man.
Wow.
So it's very disproportionate. And you go into Facebook groups, I mean, you can find us, and people are there to help you. And very often, if you're in a community, and you ask around, somebody's going to know another woman who RVs who can show you, what does it mean to empty out a black tank and a gray tank, and how do I do this and how do I do that? This is a very, very, very helpful community. And so I think that's really important, that you don't ever have to really be alone.
Mm.
And there are also, caravans, people with their RVs just say, hey, okay, we're meeting at this campground. These are the dates, book your time. And I mean, so last weekend, for instance, I met a whole group of women RVers at the county campground.
Oh,
So we're out there. There's no reason to learn anything from scratch. It is intimidating. Anything new, anything challenging, anything worth it is a little bit scary.
right.
So I always say, when I started out, it was 85% terror, 15% excitement. Now it's 85% excitement, maybe 15% terror. You still got to drive this rig. You got to pick out the right gas stations. Believe me, that's a biggie. Um, but you have to have fun out there. You get to learn who you are, and there's nothing comparable to it. This is where I find my joy, hiking on the trails. I was on Pacific Crest Trail, just a couple of days ago, and having those types of experiences, I walk around with a silly grin on my face. Maybe people cross the street wondering, well, what's wrong with her? I
Right.
am so much happier, so carefree. Financially, it's less of a burden on me. And just physically, my health has improved. My outlook in life has improved. Hanging out in campgrounds has actually restored my sense of humanity, that, maybe we're not all out to get each other. There are nice people out here. There are nice
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think that's a big one for a lot of people is if they're alone, they think about their safety. Has that ever been an issue for you?
There's so many different ways to RV. So there's a concept called boondocking, and
Mm.
boondocking, generally you're not plugged in, you don't have electricity, you don't have the water, you're out probably in the West, in BLM, Bureau of Land Management land and you're boondocking and you might be isolated. And to me, I don't do that. I mean, I like electricity.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like the AC. But you've got to be a little bit more cautious when you're in remote areas. My preference is national, state, county park campgrounds, and I have never once felt unsafe. I do go with my gut instinct. If there's something that just feels off, I don't talk myself out of it. I say, you know what, maybe this isn't a great site. Maybe, if you
Yeah.
do feel kind of in any setting, if you get that sixth sense of something's not right, follow it. Just follow it. There's no excuses needed. You might be wrong. That's cool. You might be right, and you're alive. But
Yes.
I have not had any issues whatsoever.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And I do agree that gut instinct that I remember as a kid often you just and I grew up in the Midwest as well. You got kind of in tune to like, oh, it's kind of feeling like the weather's gonna change here, time to head home or whatever. But you're right, learning to listen to that in any situation is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have favorite places that you like to go with your RV?
It two areas. I'm, one end or the other end. So Utah and all the national parks, Zion and Bryce and Arches, but there's also Canyonlands, there's Capitol Reef, and then there's Dead Horse Point State Park. It's all breathtaking. It is just breathtaking. And so that whole area, that's a favorite. And then I go all the way to the other extreme of the country where we've got New Hampshire and Maine and Vermont. And I last year I discovered the White Mountains, and that there are all these 4,000 footers. And I hiked up Mount Washington, which is like one of the most deadliest small peaks in North America. And that whole area, I mean, Maine, Sunset, I mean, it's just it is just absolutely gorgeous. And so those are my two all-time favorites. And hard to do both in the same
Yeah.
year. But it's just there's just so many incredible places that literally you drive your big rig and you're round a bend and your mouth just gapes wide open, and it's like, wow, am I really seeing that? Am I
Yeah.
really seeing that? There's just so much out here.
Right. Yeah. So how do you go about planning going from one camp to another? Is there a lot of pre-planning that people should think about? Are there different times of
Oh,
years where it's harder to get maybe a spot?
you have to be a planner these days. At one time, I from the older folks, they
Yeah.
could just get in their RV
Yeah.
and go. You cannot do that. So I stay at primarily again the state and national parks. So most of the national park campgrounds, you can make a reservation 6 months in advance. States are all over the place. So, you got to load up your calendar as to when the dates become available. So, like Florida, you can make a reservation 12 months in advance.
Oh,
And
okay.
more states are doing that. And you have to be on at exactly, 8 a.m. their time, got everything selected. And it feels a little bit like you win a Super Bowl ticket. I mean, it's the same crazy stuff. So, I stayed at Zion National Park. I got into their campground, and the first day that it was available, I couldn't get in. And then I tried the next day, knowing I could just, fill in the
Yeah.
gap. And I got this incredible campsite. And it was like jackpot.
Yeah.
But if you do not plan, if you think things are going to open up, I mean, sometimes there's some cancellations. But you've got to plan ahead. I use some software called RV Trip Wizard.
Oh.
So, and because I still work, I do work as a financial coach, and I'm working on becoming a public speaker. I do also search for cell phone reception. If you've got to work, you've got to figure out how to access the internet.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So, how have you felt that you can kind of balance this, the need for wanting to just be free and go wander with, yeah, you do need to plan now. It sounds like more and more people. I mean, there's families, there's more of us, I would think, out here traveling and using the campgrounds, and it's a balancing act, I imagine.
Well, once it's just like anything else, you want that ticket to the Super Bowl or to the concert, you plan ahead and you make sure that you're online at that time. And once you've got it, you've got it. So it does become routine. And again, my style of camping is different from what yours might be. So other people prefer staying at private campgrounds, private resorts. And then you've got a lot of campgrounds, especially in the Midwest and the Northeast, where they're seasonal. So they're only open in the summer and they have people who come back every single summer. So it is challenging, and you have to be a little flexible. You have to be willing to try different ways of camping. I know what I prefer and I know what I don't like. So for me, I'm at a private campground because it's was the only thing available. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I got neighbors on both sides of me, and it's not my style, but it's okay for a couple weeks.
Right, right. Do you mind breaking down a little bit for people, like cost wise, how much some of these resort, what it costs to say park your RV, what someone that's solo might spend on food, or are there fees as far as hooking up, some of that.
Sure, sure. It varies considerably. So I can tell you, just this year I started out in Texas and New Mexico state parks, $14 a night. You get electric
Wow.
and water. And then you go some other place, like there's a county park in Charleston, South Carolina, where you're paying $80 a night.
Hmm. Wow, that
It
is.
It is all over the board. A lot of the states have raised their fees. Some took advantage of COVID and started charging extra fees for out-of-state residents, as if they have to clean extra for those of us who are out of state. And just like airline fees, those extra fees never dropped out. It is very expensive to RV generally in the Northeast and in the West, especially, California. Your fees are higher. It is very often cheaper if you can pay for the week, especially at the private campgrounds. You might do a pay for 6 nights, get one free.
Oh, okay.
Monthly rates, some campgrounds have monthly rates, which are a lot less expensive. Gasoline is probably the biggest kick in the butt. I spent last summer, I spent $400 in one day on gasoline.
Wow. Oh, you're
So
kidding.
I topped off my RV before I left. I got to the campground, filled up the RV and filled up the Jeep. $400 in one day. I'm now
Wow.
at a place where gas is over $5 a gallon to go 300 miles. Maybe I'm going to end up spending $200 to fill up the RV tank. So people forget about those costs,
Yeah.
which are, when you first start out, you think, oh, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there. Breaking down camp and setting up camp is tiring. Driving a big rig, I got between the Jeep and the rig, I got 50 feet.
Yeah.
That's two hands on the wheel the entire time. You just, it can be intense. So, my advice if you're starting out is start slow. Spend 10 to 14 days at the best locations you can, because just moving from place to place, it costs your gas prices
Yeah.
go way up. but also you're losing that entire day. You can't, if I'm driving, I know I'm not doing anything business wise that day.
Mm-mm. No, I can see that. I mean, yeah, just having that big rig, just the mental, concentration that it takes to get that from point A to point B and then hook up and get set up for, when you get to the next place, you're literally moving your house. So, wow. What do you think are some good resources for RVers besides you mentioned the app that helps them plan it out? Are there
Right? Right. So I belong to Escapees. That's an RV group. ESCAPEES. Did I lose you?
Yeah, you lost me for a minute, but
Are
you're
you still
back.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Speaking of internet, so Escapees is a good group, and there are several other RV groups, but really go onto Facebook, Google RV groups. You're gonna find like there's a nudist group. There's an RV group that's into nudist camps and stuff. You're gonna find you're gonna find just about anything you want to find out there. You're gonna find your people, guaranteed. You just gotta look.
Yeah. That is great that the internet has created all these groups so you don't think like, hey, I love nature, there's not any other women in my community, where can I meet, And like you said, you go on Facebook and meet up and you've probably met some amazing women. Can you share a little bit about some of the people you've met in your journeys?
Well, one of the things is, I've met people, made friends on Facebook, and then I've been actually able to meet them in person.
Mm,
And so
okay.
that's been cool. So I went through Arizona, made a little detour, and met a friend for lunch, and met another Facebook friend in Big Bend National Park, and we crossed over into Mexico together. I've met folks in the wintertime at South Padre Island who were in the area and knew I was. So that's been kind of fun just to do that, just to meet some folks that way.
Yeah. So talk about a little bit about the food situation. Do you have then, because you probably don't have a lot of space to have a big refrigerator and, carry a lot of quote food. So that's something you're probably always seeking out as groceries and
It can be a challenge. So I've got the refrigerator and the freezer, but it's all on the small side, and got to make sure I've got some room for ice cream in that freezer, of course. But when you travel across country, one of the things you're going to notice very quickly is how many true food deserts we have, where I have to find something at the Dollar General. That's the grocery store in
yeah,
town, one of those dollar stores. Very difficult to find fresh vegetables. I mean, even here, there's one grocery store, and I was looking for some decent frozen vegetables, and I get
yeah,
peas and corn, that's it. So I try to stock up. I am a Trader Joe's nut, so I've driven, an hour plus to get to a Trader Joe's. So I'll try to stock up on things that I can. And summertime, if there are farmers markets, I love going to good farmers markets. But when I'm in these little towns, there really isn't a lot to choose from, and then it's very, very expensive. The prices here, the prices of my last place have been just utterly shocking.
wow.
I do not, I try not to eat out. I trick myself a little bit because I'll take $100, get $100 in cash. That's my restaurant money for the month.
Mm,
That's it. Going out to eat is not a priority for me. And oftentimes when I do go out, the food isn't worth it. It's just
right.
not very good. So I'd rather prepare some food here in the RV. I do intermittent fasting that cuts down how often I'm eating. But the food is a challenge. It's you've especially, I mean, cooking for one period is a challenge. You know,
Yeah.
you tend to throw out more than you want to, but definitely on the road that a good supermarket is a fantastic find.
Yeah, you cut out. Oops, you cut out for a minute.
Okay.
That's okay.
Where did I lose you?
Something about the supermarket right before, but you're right.
Oh,
There are food deserts. I've noticed that too, where
yeah.
you can't find fresh vegetables or fresh. You're like, where do people? It's
Well, it's all processed, and that's kind of the American diet, you know, everything is processed or, you know, frozen pizzas and frozen junk food. So, you know, you really, yeah, yeah, it is really kind of sad when you realize the extent of how we, you know, Doritos and you
yeah.
know, Pepsi. That's what's on the shelf. It's pretty dismal.
Yeah, it really is. And I was going to say, you look great, by the way. So I think the fresh air and eating well and just being outside, I think is so super healthy for people.
It is. I call it my own anti-aging, reverse aging formula because I do feel younger. I feel more alive. I feel healthier. I feel more present. I'm losing wrinkles. How about that?
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I mean. Your skin looks great and you just look so happy. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it. And but finding food is a definitely a challenge. And I think it's sad. I don't know where we're gonna switch that thinking with people because when I've been road tripping too, I realized that there's literally, like you said, a dollar store, maybe the gas station, but they don't even have like fresh vegetables or something like real
Yeah.
food.
Yeah, yeah, and I do not eat fast food. It's just it's I I remember getting a fast food sandwich one time last year because I was starving and there was a place at the gas station. That's it. I refuse to do the fast food thing.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. I know you're working on a project called, I think you said it was something about dandelions and living simply. So share a bit about that.
Sure, I'm actually in the process of doing I've got a survey out that I would love for your listeners to participate in it. It's a project I call Dandelion Moments, and it came from another RVer who talked about this moment where she was in the RV and somebody pulled out a guitar and they're singing and they're having a good time. And it's one of those moments you just want to bottle up.
Yeah,
Like everything is perfect at this moment. You know it's going to disappear.
right.
So she called it a dandelion moment, and I hadn't heard that before. And I thought that's just perfect because you know, the dandelion seed, the wind takes it, it's gone, it's dispersed into, you know, for miles around.
Yeah,
But you have that moment. And I'm big into helping people design their dream lives. And it's like, you know, that's a huge concept. And I thought, what if your dream life is really nothing more than creating these special moments, you know, at the end of our lives, what do we have? Maybe it's a series of flashbacks of all those fantastic moments.
right.
Because we're so obsessed with this dream life that often means I'm going to have a lot of money and I'm going to be famous and I'm going to have my own island and Learjet. And those are not necessarily the things that bring us the joy. Those are not the things we remember at the end of our lives. So I started surveying people about what are your dandelion moments? What do you really remember? And they're tiny little things, words from a stranger or hanging out with your sisters. For
Yeah,
me, like I remember going to a Packers game with my dad and high-fiving my dad. That was a dandelion moment. So I'm putting that all together and it fits in with we complicate our lives, but maybe we need to simplify it. And maybe we don't need all this. Maybe we don't need the $20 million, the $40 million. Maybe we just need to live our lives so we can create those situations, create the conditions where we can create more of those little moments of joy, those little dandelion moments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating to read what because a lot of these moments take us from dark places.
Right.
And that's the other question that I ask, is there are times in many of our lives where we feel like we've lost hope and there's nothing there. And sometimes it's a small moment that brings us back into realizing that, you know what, maybe I can still enjoy something.
Right.
So, and for me, you know, living simply and living in the RV and being out in nature. And I mean, today I smiled all afternoon. I mean, I smiled all afternoon. How many times, how many people can say that? I'm in the Alabama hills, there's these arches.
Yeah.
I'm driving, almost getting stuck on these tiny little roads. I'm having a blast. And those are the little moments that I know bring me joy, and I purposefully put myself in a place where I can create more of those moments. And maybe that's what life should be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is that simple.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, I totally agree about that. That's wonderful. So, what's next?
Well, I'm about to, I mean, I embrace change, so I'm about to make another change. So I have been transitioning or pivoting sort of my messaging away from the heavy finances into sort of your dream life. But I'm working on becoming a paid speaker. And to
Hmm.
do that, I need to slow down on the RVing. So I
Yeah.
actually I'm on a wait list for this RV co-op in Southern California. And it's also going to be help me financially because I'll be able to stay in one place as long as I want. So in my mind, I will be doing, building a speaking career. I'll be in one place at least for maybe the spring and the fall, do my speaking in the spring and the fall, and then have fun in the winter and the summer. Maybe go to Mexico part of the winter, summertime, cool off someplace up north, but continue living this amazing flexibility where I can work on my hours and rainy days are really good for me because I catch up on my work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so I use the weather to dictate my work. So I'm going to slow down and hang out more in Southern California, probably starting uh late in the year, maybe early 2024, and work on becoming a paid speaker and sort of spread my message of simple living and how to, a lot of my story has to do with burnout at a high level career, how to help people through burnout and discover that there's something better awaiting them, there's
Right.
something better on the other side.
Right. And that is true. I think we get caught up in, at least in the United States, that's all I know, where, more money, higher paid position, that's the something to be attained. And it people get to that point often and then they're just like they're miserable, they're unhappy, they're just not fulfilled. And it's unfortunate.
Absolutely. Right. And I am a sociologist. That's what my PhD is in. And so I see how, society shapes us. We're supposed to get our college education, we get the family, get the job career, get the new car, get the house, do all this, and then wait until we retire. This is the stupidest life cycle ever.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
when you break free from those ideas of what it means to be successful, it really frees up what you can follow what your heart wants, not what
Hmm.
somebody is telling you what you should do, who you should be, how you should act. And there's freedom in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's exciting. I mean, COVID was really hard on so many people, but overall, I kind of see, I know a lot of people, it really gave people time to stop and maybe rethink the rat race, whatever little wheel they were on. And I think we're starting to see reflection of that. People are making changes. They don't want to go punch a clock, every day.
Absolutely. I can talk to almost anybody in the campground who can tell me a story. Last week, same thing. They were telling me about their son, high-powered attorney, 26th floor, beautiful office with the view. COVID comes, he works from home. They've got a kid. They call him back to the office. He's like, nope. So he took a corporate job. He's an attorney and makes less money, but he has flexibility and he's with his family. And those are the values, the younger generation has got it together. I think they're seeing that, they're understanding that. We've all been impacted by COVID. It is the proverbial money versus time.
Yes.
And to me, everything is about time. We don't know how much time we have. We better learn to enjoy it, and we better learn to enjoy our own company.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's so true. And it's hard for me to sometimes wrap my head around. You see some of these people in these positions that are, I'll just, not to go political or anything, but they keep hanging in these places. And it's like, you can't buy time. You can have all the money, the biggest house, you can have 5 or 10 houses, but if you don't have time to go enjoy them or do what you love, what good is all of that? What do you?
Yeah, yeah, it's so much of this is status, and it's like I don't care what your phone is or what your clothing is,
Yeah.
and that's just empty shallowness to me. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's just at the end, we all die, and uh I mean, it really comes down to the core of what's the meaning of life, and is it just to have stuff? Is it
Right.
just to show off your stuff? That is empty.
Yeah. Well, I
Of
hope
course,
you're
you're in
seeing.
Vegas, so it's like,
Well, only because I had to escape Southern California. Again, it came down to a money thing. I mean, it was getting way too expensive to live there. And again, I didn't want to be working a job that wasn't bringing me joy, realizing, I only have X amount of time in this place. And
yep,
the
yep. So
stress, you can just kind of
yeah,
feel the stress in some of these cities. You can feel you're everyone's kind of it's just an uncomfortableness, whereas out here where it's more wide open, people are more, it's just more relaxed. You got to free yourself up.
yep. Well, I can tell you how to do Southern California incredibly cheap. So
You cut
if
out,
you
you
are
got it, you got to share some tips on that because people are.
Well, I'm into this RV co-op. I put down a pretty hefty deposit. One I will get back when I leave if I leave the co-op. My monthly fees, except for electricity, get you ready for this? $384.16.
That's it.
So I own my RV, so I'll park my RV. I get a site. I've got some space. I can build a gazebo and some outdoor space for my cats and have this unbelievable view of the mountains.
Oh my goodness, wow.
Swimming pool, hot tub, pickleball courts, mini golf. I mean, all of this stuff, but I'm kind of pinching myself to know that I can live in Southern California and also
Yeah.
to grow a speaking career. It means I'm close to San Diego, close to Los Angeles. I can travel up and down the coast and hang out in the West, and even doing that, be able to likely fill my calendar if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm close to some of the most beautiful places
Oh
on this
yeah.
planet.
Oh,
Um,
exactly.
so it is possible with the RV life of being able to kind of like the tiny house movement,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
RV life offers you that same opportunity of being able to really cut your costs, but while staying in an amazing scene, boundaries, amazing
Right.
place.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I'm jealous. It's fabulous. So what do you do then about quote residency? as far.
Ah, great question. Most full-time RVers pick one of three states, Florida, Texas, or I think it's South Dakota. Partly because there's no state income taxes, and partly because generally they've worked with full-time RVers to make sure that we can set up domicile, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get my driver's license, I can vote, I can get the health insurance that's with that. So most of us who are full-timers, I mean, we don't have property anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So, we've got to have a state, and those three traditionally have made it pretty easy for us to do that. For me, I still have to get insurance, and if you go through healthcare.gov, Florida has the only policy that will cover you outside of the state.
Oh.
So all those factors you have to think about if you do become full time. Some people still have homes. Some people take to the RV life and maybe they rent their homes out. Or they have the home and the RV. But for full timers, we're just roaming around mostly having a good time.
Yeah, I would think so. So mainly to stay in touch with friends and family, then you don't quote collect mail, do you? I mean, I know paper mail is disappearing as such, but
Well, I have a mailing service in Florida, and that is how I'm able to establish that domicile. And what they will do is they can scan it for me. I'm
oh,
here, so I just had them forward. I've got new health insurance cards, so I had them forward it to this RV resort, the RV campground where I'm at. If you get a check, they can even deposit the check for you. So everything is all online. Uh, it's there really aren't the barriers. You begin to think about, well, what am I going to do about health insurance? What am I going to
yeah.
do about domicile? What am I going to do about mail? It's all figured out. We can do it. There are no barriers to this life.
Yeah, this is really beautiful. So you mentioned, I think you said there was a group, and I think you cut out that it was like escapees. So
Yeah,
people,
that's one of the groups that I belong to. And they have a subgroup of that called escapers who are for working age
oh,
RVers. So most of them are just like me. They tend to be very active and generally younger, but they're working out of their rig just like I am.
I
So
was
there
just,
are lots of us. There are more and more folks working from their RVs than I think that's just going to continue.
oh, I think so too, definitely. I think more and more people are seeing the freedom in this lifestyle. So I was just wondering if there's a good website that kind of outlines, like you mentioned, like establishing domicile, the insurance, or if that's just again asking others. But
I mean, you can Google that. Like I even have a YouTube video on why I selected Florida. I mean, I go
oh,
through the
okay,
three states and I outline the things that were significant to me as to why I chose Florida. But Escapees is a good starting point, but you can Google this and likely come up with the same types of information. And if you are just starting out, I mean, one of the mistakes I see people make is they buy the wrong rig or they buy something, and a lot of the newer stuff, it's not great quality. You're going to have problems.
yeah.
It is better to buy a used rig where things have already been worked out and the prices are less. There is no reason to buy a brand new rig. It's expensive and generally you're gonna have more problems. So, and then it should be inspected just like a house should be inspected. The rig, you should get an independent inspection of it because I do see people buying lemons,
Oh,
buying
well, yeah.
rigs that are in the shop, and it's really hard to find RV technicians in some places. I just read a post from someone who had been RVing for decades. They said, "We're done. We're
Oh,
done with it.
really?
We cannot find decent RV technicians." You
Oh,
know, the rig has been in the shop more than it's been on the road. So, you know, you really have to do your homework just the same that you do if you're buying a car or you're buying a house. Do your homework.
what's your YouTube channel if people want to check out that video? That sounds helpful for people.
Yeah, I think I'm now RV Money Coach. I just changed it a little while ago, RV Money Coach. My website is Dr. Brenda Money Coach. Um, and my link tree, linktr.ee/ Dr. Brenda U. So you can, yeah, I'm happy if there are if there's anybody out there, especially solo women who are thinking about this, they're welcome to connect with me. I can try to connect them with some larger groups, but I understand, you know, I understand what it's like to start over, and there's a lot of, it can feel overwhelming at the beginning, and you just got to take this one step at a time.
Right, right. No, I think that's wonderful. I always remember my grandmother as she got older and she lost, unfortunately her life partner, my grandfather, passed away pretty young, and she always talked about, hey, I just want to sell this place and get a little camper and travel the United States. And it broke my heart that she actually never just did that, because I think she would have just really blossomed and flourished. She was very, she liked her private time, but she also liked just exploring, hopping in the car. And that's what got me kind of traveling, because she would just pile us in the car and, grab a picnic lunch and off we'd go. So,
Yeah, yeah, and there are a lot of older women out there on their own. I mean, I actually helped one of my clients, you know, get into the RV life. So, and she's off in Yellowstone now. She'll work different. I mean, that's another thing that you can do is work for one of the Park Service concessionaires in the summer. So she gets paid. She's got a place to stay for free. She'll go to a different place every summer, and then wintertime go back to Arizona where she shares a house with somebody. So there are ways to do this regardless of your age. I don't know grumpy RVers, come to think of it.
yeah.
I really don't. Most of us out here it's a very enlightening experience. You know, whatever anybody did, I don't know. I think I lost you again.
Yeah, you lost me for a minute. Yeah. You were just saying something
Yep,
about
yep.
you didn't know any grumpy RVers, which I liked that.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda. You've given me so much of your time today. It's been really fun to chat with you. And I think your website again was rvmoneycoach.com, or the link
Um,
tree.
my website is Dr. Brenda Money Coach.
Got it. And I'll put that in the show notes. And by all means, if anyone wants to reach out to Brenda and start a new life, like, contact Brenda. I can see her, she's just smiling. She's been outside all day exploring the hills, and it's wonderful.
Well, thank you, April. This has been a lot of fun.